Millions of buyers are sitting on the real estate fence because they're waiting for the market to turn their way. But at the end of the day, you're ready to buy a house when you're ready to buy a house. When your walls are closing in on your growing family, or when the house is too big because your kids have moved out. When you're sick of paying someone else's mortgage, or when it's time to retire somewhere new. Buyers can't wait for a market shift. They need a clear path forward and wisdom from real people. That's where How to Buy comes in. You'll join me, Leo Ansoliaga, as we hear how to buy stories and advice from real buyers and the professionals who help them along the way in mortgage, real estate, insurance, financial planning, contracting, appraisal, and so much more. Now, let's jump in to today's episode. In this episode of How to Buy, I sit down with Ken Furuya, a financial advisor with Prudential Advisors, who not only runs his own practice, but also leads over 160 advisors across the Mid-Atlantic region. Ken and I discuss his journey from starting in real estate after college to becoming a financial planner. This is a great episode for advisors hoping to scale their business and hear firsthand how Ken's team supports other advisors through collaboration, coaching, and partnership. I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it.
Well, what a treat it is to have someone I have had the pleasure of meeting and getting to know, Ken Furuya with Prudential Advisors. And in today's episode, I'm going to highlight his story because his story is unique in the sense that not only does Ken, have a practice of his own, but Ken also leads 160 plus and counting advisors underneath his umbrella. Ken, it's a pleasure to have you on.
Hey, Leo. Really great to be on with you today, and thanks for having me.
Ken, you and I have had the pleasure of meeting together, and where you have shared your journey with me, starting out first, your practice, and then second, really growing into, this role that you have now. So talk to us a little bit about that, right? Give us a little bit of insight in terms of how does someone like you get into this space? And then how does someone like you scale out a massive region of other practices underneath you?
Yeah, thanks. This is a long time ago. And I guess back right after college, I worked for one of the top realtors in DC. And then in experiencing that business, seeing the high-paced environment of working with clients, that got me hooked. So what I wanted to go ahead and seek for myself is truly to be an entrepreneur and the ability to go ahead and grow a business. The reason why I chose the financial service industry is, as a 24-year-old young guy coming into this career, I needed as many tools in my tool belt to go ahead and help clients with their planning. So and also on top of that, I joined Prudential Advisors because of the global brand and the recognition that it provided. Leo, I'm an immigrant from Japan. My entire family lives there. So when my relatives go ahead and ask me who I work with, I can let them know it's with Prudential and they know exactly who the company is. Now, I guess with that, did I ever think that I'll be here for over 2 decades? I'm not exactly sure, but I'd like to go into everything with a full passion and engagement of a lifelong commitment is what I try to put forth in anything that I do.
Well, what an incredible introduction, because I think to your point, as people are coming into, the workforce, specifically out after college, we really don't know like where we're going to end up, working, right? I mean, obviously there's some skills that we have gained over the years that transfer really well in different industries, but we don't necessarily know exactly where things will end up. And to your point, like, it's important to, to start somewhere. It sounds like you started in real estate and then, eventually, kind of took those skills and transferred them over here. But at the end of the day, one of the main ingredients that I find, specifically, with great advisors, great financial planners, great people in real estate, mortgage, et cetera, is the concept of trust, right? So developing trust, not just with your clients, but also your business partners, is the key. So what are some of the greatest maybe concepts or what are some of the greatest things that you've learned in that journey, even coming out of college, that has allowed you to not only build trust, Ken, with the people that you serve within your own book, but also for the people that you're now leading in other organizations?
Yeah. So, whenever I joined this industry, back then, the industry's gone through so much change. But how it used to work is that you would show a little bit of success early on and they would promote you into leadership.
Mm.
Now that journey has spanned across about 20 years for me, and I've learned a lot over the years. And when you look at me and my team, we're charged with supporting and growing the advisors across the Mid-Atlantic. As you mentioned, around 160 advisors, and we also have a lot more in our training program. And our key philosophy in partnering with our financial advisors is really to have a servant leader mindset.
Mm.
Right. So, none of us really have any success unless we have successful advisors that we're helping out, grow their practice, really impacting the clients in the right way. So that's the key fundamental sort of way that we go ahead and position ourselves to work with our colleagues. But in addition to that, when you look at some of the top performing advisors, I believe that certain key things separate a great practitioner from a business owner. Right. So there's different phases, I believe, to our career. Number one, you need to become a great marketer because you start out with no clients.
Mm.
Second thing that happens is that you become a great practitioner, right? Really working with clients, crafting up different strategies. And over time, you need to become a business owner so your focus starts to shift to other places. And what we believe is for you to go ahead and make that leap from a great practitioner to coaching them to become great business owners, there are three key ingredients to that. Number one is helping advisors get used to relinquishing control. Now, even in your industry and mine, we have a lot of type A personalities who want to be in the trenches doing everything. But it's impossible to go ahead and scale a business if you're the person doing it all. And a lot of times what we see is that the original founder of that business tends to be the bottleneck of almost the whole thing around the operation.
Mm-hmm.
Second thing is to really help them identify, retain, and also hire quality people into their organization. Surround themselves with people that are actually better than them. Right. And the more you could go ahead and start to go ahead and get really honed in on your expertise and letting everybody else handle where their zone of genius is something that's going to really help propel the business and also build trust, not only among the clients, but also among the team itself. And then lastly, it is about automating and having processes, right? It's important that we have so many touch points throughout the whole thing. And for us, what it does is it creates a much more elevated client experience when you could go ahead and know everything that's going to happen from the time you start engaging with the clients to what happens, 5 years down the line. And I know, Leo, you and I have spoken a lot of times in terms of what we offer to clients is more of a process where people have the ability to go ahead and analyze their situation and really, make the decision that's comfortable for them, right? Based on all the information that we were able to go ahead and provide to them.
Wow. I mean, you are speaking, music to my ears because, it's interesting, right? Let's just kind of go from the lenses of a consumer. A consumer doesn't necessarily know, what a practitioner or a business owner looks like, right? I mean, they will know only when they go into their world and start to perhaps see the lack at scale, right? Like perhaps the lack of access to the main guy, the lack of promptness in responses, right? And so what you're essentially saying is like, look, we help these advisors really scale their business out and to remove the bottleneck that is probably the biggest issue in the business, and that's themselves. I mean, I lived this out, right? I was talking to someone yesterday that it wasn't until a few years ago that we reached some amazing milestones in our business, but it wasn't until I said, I'm literally the issue here. A business gets to a certain point where your marketing skills, your ability to be obviously to sell is amazing, but you get to a certain point where the business is compounding at a much higher rate of that you've obviously ever dreamed of. But now your ability to fulfill, your ability to deliver, your ability to maybe like, do things efficiently and effectively start to diminish. And it starts to actually eat at that momentum that you have, right? Now, consumers don't know this. They don't know what's under the hood, right? I hired an organization to kind of help me bring order into my process, to help me bring order into our system, to remove me from the actual day-to-day operations. And you're right. I mean, that was a painful process that I had to go through because, if we're honest with ourselves, you can't be everything to everyone in the entire process. But it's when you start to remove yourselves piece by piece, documentation, right? Documentation leads to hiring the right people. The right people, obviously, 3-to-1 methodology, right? Like, you're going to hire three, two of them are not going to work out, but one will, right? And then, in rolling out the product, that's when it matters. And it sounds like you're doing that at a very high level for a lot of the practices and advisors that are looking for growth.
Yeah, and I think, our role, not only in terms of, let's say, removing obstacles, right, things that slow them down, but also, really challenging them to open their mind and think bigger. A lot of people never have, we sometimes see in them, where they could go ahead and go more than maybe they can themselves. So, I think it's important for all of us to go ahead and collaborate and work together to really challenge each other to grow big as well.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point because oftentimes like our perspective is essentially tied to our limiting beliefs, right? The glass, sometimes it's not completely filled, but all we see perhaps is the limits that exist as opposed to the opportunity that exists for us. And I think to your point, it's when you have a third party or a neutral person that is looking into your business and saying, "Hey, if we were to fix these little items here." Here's what that would do to your time, but also to the overall amount of people that you can serve at scale, right? Now, talk to me there because I think this is a really interesting case study, right? Obviously, you're not helping, 600,000 advisors right now, right? There's only 160 and growing, right? What is the formula or the recipe for success? Who are the right people that understand this model, and the right people that you've been able to bring into, your ecosystem to help them scale? I mean, we can talk about the wrong people, but who are the people that have benefited the most from the things that you and your team have been able to offer them?
Yeah, I think a key sort of, I guess, culture that we've always looked to grow and preserve is culture of collaboration. When you go to different financial firms, you start to see a very cutthroat sales environment, and that is far like beyond what we look at in terms of running our organization. We believe that collaboration creates much better outcomes for people. And what that even means is that if we need to bring in specialists to go ahead and level up our game in terms of the advice that we provide to clients, we need to go ahead and bring in the best people to do that job. And, it's not a zero-sum game, right? There's literally potential clients everywhere, right? Around the DMV and across the US. So you're not in shortage of people who probably need our help, right? We just need to go ahead and create a better experience for them and be very active or proactive in communicating with them about how to go ahead and accomplish their goals that's important to them.
Yeah, I think that's so key. I think collaboration is a major ingredient, in a healthy culture, because 1+1 is always 11, right? And that's a really interesting, case study in and of itself, right? Like one individual plus another individual, it's not two, it's one individual plus another individual, which equals 11, right? And the collaboration piece is super critical in that. But I would argue also like you need people that are feeling some of those pains, right? Like, I mean, they're like, wow, we've done such a great job of attracting clients. Talent, is not necessarily an issue for us in terms of marketing. We've done a great job of fulfilling some of these, plans, et cetera. But we're out of time. We don't have, a lot of time to be able to scale this. And as a matter of fact, we don't even know what scale looks like. I was talking to a real estate professional, an amazing operator, just yesterday, and I said to her, you're at a point now in your business where you're compounding at such a high degree, okay? Unless you bring order right now. And she said, right now, in the busiest time, I was like, right now, you are going to miss because as this thing continues to compound, it's also going to start to regress. You're going to start to see a negative compounding effect in your business at a much larger scale. And I don't think a lot of business owners think about this, right? They think about like, well, I'm doing just fine. Exactly, you're doing just fine. But when this thing starts to multiply and it becomes bigger, the mistakes become bigger, the stakes become bigger, right? And obviously the negative component of this also becomes bigger. And I think that that's also some of the individuals that could benefit, potentially from your platform.
And the key to it is really situating yourself for where you want to be versus where you are now. If you wait till, hey, I need to go ahead and make this change, you're probably too late to the game, right? So it's really identifying obstacles that could go ahead and, come along the way, and identifying that early in the process and getting it ready to go. So by the time we get there, it's totally seamless. Um, and, I guess to that, one of the ways in how we go ahead and really enhance that experience for our advisor community is really to bring in outside influences to them. People who have done that, scale their business to a much greater degree than what we have internally here. So by being able to go ahead and see the playbook in terms of what were some of the challenges that they went through and how to course correct or how to anticipate those changes that's coming along the way, that's been a real big value add to help our advisors grow locally.
Yeah, what a great point, because I think, having neutral parties outside that have already done this is also incredibly beneficial to all of the advisors that you're leading. One of the ways that we've connected, was, through some of the things that we're doing with financial planners and advisors, right? Like to really bring the liability side of the balance sheet into the equation. A lot of people, they think about the plan, the asset side of the balance sheet, and they, to some extent, they've mastered that plan, right? I think scale absolutely can happen in those plans, but it's when you bring outside resources, perhaps things that you haven't really thought about, right? Like, why would you even bring a mortgage professional practice into your ecosystem? Well, there could be, if done right, there could be an incredible opportunity to retain, to create, and to compound the current AUM that you have, yes, but also the database that you have currently by addressing the liability side of the balance sheet. So talk a little bit about that, Ken, because it's ideas like this, concepts like this that you're bringing forward to your actual base of advisors that has helped obviously them grow.
Yeah. So, how we see ourselves as the household CFO. And really the value that we bring is resource management, right? There's sometimes, at the beginning, probably when I started in this career, there's lack of information, right? People need to go through an intermediary like myself to get a lot of that information. Now everything's online, so there's no shortage of information. We just got to go ahead and figure out what is a trusted source and how do these pieces of the puzzle actually come together. Right. So when you look at, let's say, debt or liability management and how to do it most efficiently, that's a big part of the financial planning work we do. And if done right, debt using properly can have wonderful outcomes to what we need to do. So specifically, even like for myself, I have the opportunity to buy and sell a lot of different real estate over the years. Even to this point now, right? Considering different options such as fixed rate mortgages, interest only or adjustable rate mortgages, new construction loans, commercial loans. How do these pieces actually fit together as part of the strategy? We can't do it all of ourselves. So a lot of times financial advisors and planners like myself will work with lenders like you, estate attorneys, bankers, insurance people. So we want to go ahead and get the right network of professionals who have common themes. Number one is the way that they work with clients is much more not a hard push, right? So I have a very certain style with my clients. I want to go ahead and make sure that the partners that I bring on board fit that criteria. Second thing is people who are willing to be very proactive at communicating with the clients, sharing ideas, guiding them along the way, because it's not necessarily the best rates. And although those things are very important, it's guiding them through a process. So by the end of it, they could say, wow, I actually understand, why I'm doing the things that I'm going to be doing, right? And I feel good and comfortable about it, right? So I think that's the key part that a lot of people are missing is that, by bringing other people into the mix, it only makes you look better.
Yeah, well, what powerful statements that is, because I think you're right, right? Like at the end of the day, you are who you surround yourself with, and we're not lacking for information. You nailed it. The internet, even the LLMs that are out there, like they have enough information, to for you to be able to obviously look as a consumer. But what about like proper vetting, right? I think that's what you're talking about. How does this align, with, your overall financial strategy, right? So I always tell clients, within our practice, we say, look, there's two types of people that do what we do. You have your traditional mortgage professional, and typically what you're going to get from them is just a rate, a payment, a cash to close, and they're going to give you a pre-approval letter, and they're going to say, good luck, give us a call when you're ready. And that's not necessarily a bad way to approach this. The other side of the equation is tied to mortgage planning, right? How does this mortgage fit within your overall financial picture? Things like taxes, investments, retirement, right? And so as a practice, we pride ourselves in ensuring that the actual mortgage strategy is in alignment with the overall financial plan that you have available. Now, are we going to be in line with the market on rates, payments, cash to close? Absolutely. But we're going to go a step further and say, okay, here's how this entire thing fits together, right? But as a consumer, how do we vet this, right? Like, how is someone supposed to know the difference between me and someone down the street, right? And I think what you're saying is like, hey, we have access to vetted professionals that are in alignment with what we're doing, and we have the ability to be able to do that in the same way that we have the ability to be able to vet, real estate professionals, real estate agents, right, that are out there, right? Like, I'm so glad that you have an amazing sign on 495 and 95 North with your face on it, but that doesn't mean that you're really good at what you do. And as a consumer, how do you vet that? Well, you need someone that can actually do that for you. And that's essentially what you're talking about.
Yeah, and allowing each other or the different professionals to game plan together so it becomes a coordinated strategy, as well as providing options, right? So there's different forms of borrowing, whether it's through mortgage lenders like yourself, borrowing out of your own 401k account, against the investments that you own. So there's a lot of different ways, and based on the specifics of that client and also the goals that they have, each different type of loan plays a role in all of this.
Let's talk a little bit more in light of what you just said about, your overall goal for this umbrella of amazing financial planners and advisors that you're leading. Like, what is the ultimate goal for you? What is the ultimate goal for the company at large? Can you give us a little bit of insight there, Ken?
Yeah, so our local firm under the Prudential Advisors umbrella is called the Mid-Atlantic Financial Group. We span across the Mid-Atlantic, everything from Delaware through all of Virginia is where we go ahead and support our advisors. We also do have advisors outside that geographic area as well, as people, lifestyle change, whether they move or they even partner with different folks around the country. But our goal is to go ahead and truly be the home of choice for financial advisors out there, right? There's a lot of firms doing it in different ways. We believe that we bring a specific niche of value proposition to the people who are considering us, who's looking for collaboration, business coaching, and also really to take their business to the next level. We are interested in people who are interested in growing their practice. I guess, when looking at that, there's so many also differences in terms of how firms operate, right? And I think it's important to maybe even highlight some of the key differences that makes us unique compared to some of the other firms out there. So number one is a collaboration that we've talked about many times in terms of our partnership, from the leadership side to our advisors. Second thing is around just the overall structure of how people align with us. We're not here to go ahead and put people in a cookie cutter model of how to run their practice. They have the freedom and flexibility to truly be independent in terms of running their own business the way that they want to. But we have a lot of expertise in working with different business styles to go ahead and help them achieve their goals in certain ways. Another one is about marketing and business development, right? So when you start off, let's say, without a lot of clients, it's really hard to get this thing off the ground. Once you have a lot of clients and referrals are coming in, it's much easier, but the beginning stages is important. So what we do is, our partnership with Prudential and LPL Enterprise, who's part of our technology stack and investment platform, they allow us to go ahead and really help the enterprises market themselves to go ahead and disseminate the leads that they are generating over to us. So a big way in how we do that is through like corporate education, right? So people say after the pandemic, it's like healthcare wellness and financial wellness are the two big topics for employees. So what we do is we partner with Fortune 500 companies, both like nonprofit organizations such as like universities and hospital systems, as well as even like county and government agencies. And we provide financial education to those organizations at masses, and then allow our advisors to go ahead and work with employees one-on-one with the people who may want assistance.
Amazing.
And the last thing that's been a big focus for us over the past couple of years is helping advisors identify and facilitate practice acquisitions. So think about buying businesses, right? It's a lot harder to grow one by one client versus all these practices, especially because our industry has a very aging population of advisors who have no succession plan or continuity plan in terms of what's going to happen to their clients, as well as what's going to happen to the service of their clients once they decide to go ahead and go into retirement. So I think that there's a phenomenal opportunity to align our advisors with those opportunities and look at how to take over, practices that's out there externally.
Wow, I mean, talk about unique. I mean, that right there, is a well thought out plan that, it's not just fictitious or nebulous. It's very specific and things that you're obviously are already executing on, right? And I would argue, if you fit within that category, I mean, it would be amazing for people to connect with you. Now, tell us a little bit about that. Like, what is the best way for people to get in touch with you? What is the best way for them to connect with you, Ken?
Yeah, I'm sure, this will be on LinkedIn, and I look forward to connecting with everybody. But, you could look me up, and I'm happy to have a conversation confidentially, right? Because a lot of these people that we talk to are successful advisors at other firms.
Amazing. Well, thank you again, Ken, for your time. It was truly an unbelievable time with you, and look forward to many more.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me again, and look forward to keep on working together.